Did you know you can turn any coloring page into a watercolor painting? Well, you can. Today I'm going to show you the secret. Hi, my name is Jessica and welcome back to Sunlit Brushstrokes. Today I'm going to show you how to take this coloring page, which is from my Etsy shop. You can see the link in the description. I'm going to show you how to turn this into a beautiful watercolor tulip. First things first, we need to discuss paper. Paper is really the biggest difference maker in a successful versus an unsuccessful watercolor painting. Unfortunately, you cannot just grab one of these pieces of paper, print it out, and try and paint on it. Surprisingly, the thing that makes even more of an impact on your painting than the quality of the paint you use is the quality of the paper, in the case of watercolor. Now, when I did this project here, I did use Arch's cold press watercolor paper. I will say I learned the hard way though. I would say to go with Arch's hot press instead, which is kind of the same cover as this one, but it's going to be pink. And I discovered the real reason I would recommend the hot press is for the lettering. The cold press was great for the painting, and I usually do my paintings on cold press paper. Cold press paper, however, is a little bit more textured. And so for these, this lettering, the scripture verse, it was very bumpy to write on this paper. And so I've got here a small sample of this, the word Redeemer done on hot press paper. So much easier. So even though as I'm going through this whole project, you're going to see me working on the cold press, Arch's cold press paper, I would recommend instead go with the hot press. It will allow you to still get the techniques to work that we did here, but it will also give you a much smoother time when you go to do your lettering. So I do work with both, but I don't very often letter right on the watercolor paper. So I will say that was a lesson I learned, and I'm gonna tell you that at the beginning. Let's go ahead and talk about watercolor paint. When you're doing watercolor, like I said, I think that watercolor paper is the most important factor in the success of your painting. However, paint does have an influence. So these are the paints that are my absolute favorite. This is M. Graham, and they are just beautiful paint. However, they are a little on the pricey side. So unless you're going to be doing a lot of painting and you're ready to put out a little bit more money, I would recommend keeping those for when you're definitely sold on watercolor. So unless you want to go ahead and buy those. My second option is Van Gogh, and these are still beautiful paints, but the price range is just a little bit better for starting out. And I really recommend you just go with three. The three colors that I recommend would be, if you're going to use Van Gogh, transparent yellow, quinacridone rose, and that's your red, and phthalo blue, which is your blue. If you're doing the M. Graham brand, the yellow I like the best is Hansa Yellow Deep, and then the red is quinacridone rose, and again, phthalo blue. It's just got a longer name here, and I don't know if I can say that. Phthalocyanine? I don't know if I said that right, but it's basically the same. So that would be what I would recommend for your three primaries. And if you don't have those paints on hand, but you want to get going on one of the projects that I'm doing, what I would recommend is just making sure your colors look somewhat similar as your primaries. These are the Van Gogh paints. I've tested them. And these black lines, what I did is I put a line of permanent pen on my paper and then painted on top. And that way you can kind of get an idea how transparent the paint is. And as you can see, the black line showing through, which means it's a nice transparent paint, which is what I'm after. Some of the cheaper paints, and I've tested some cheaper ones here, you will see, especially this yellow here, it was not a transparent paint. And I mean, you can get expensive paints that aren't transparent as well, but this is just, I really don't like watercolor when it's that pasty. It can be really frustrating to work with. So most of the colors here, like the blues in the cheap brand, was totally fine. And so if you are stuck with something cheaper, or you just want to use whatever you have at home, the phthalo blue and the ultramarine blue were both really good in the cheaper brands. So I would find if there's any paint you are going to splurge on, it's probably going to be your yellows. then this is my test page for the M gram. And I've got two blues on the go here again. So this is the phthalo blue or phthalocyanine. And then ultramarine. Ultramarine blue, you can get it in the Van Gogh brand. I just don't have any at home myself. But you can get the ultramarine. It works fairly well. It just doesn't have as many, it doesn't paint into as many range of colors as the phthalo blue will. The phthalo blue is more of a true primary. However, most of the time, like for the projects that I do, probably the ultramarine would be fine, because it's the area where it tends to be a little bit lacking is in your really teal greens, and I don't work with too many teal greens. So you could probably get away with, if you didn't have a blue that looks like one of these ones, then you could probably get away with a blue that's like that, and most of the time it will work. It will make beautiful purples still. The area you may feel slightly limited is when you want to go make some teal looking greens or teals. That's where you really would prefer to have a blue that's more on the teal side. It's more of a true primary, if you will. And then, yes, surprise, surprise, the best primary red is one that's on the pink side. Quinacridone Rose is definitely the one you want to go with. And a transparent yellow of some kind. And so like the Hansa Yellow Deep, if you're using M gram, or the Van Gogh transparent yellow medium, if you're going to go with that brand. So that's my recommendation for paint. But like I say, by just looking at these color swatches here, and really, if you're looking at this one and you've got colors that match that and they're transparent, I would just say go with those. And then when you're ready to splurge on some paints, you could start with this brand. And then if you're really wanting to splurge, move up to that one. In fact, you could even, I'll bring that up nice and close, and you could screenshot that and compare that against the colors that you already have at home and see if you've got something that's close. Now there's a few ways you can transfer this onto your watercolor paper. One would be a light box, which I don't have. So I'm going to show you the method that I use. We have two options. We can apply some graphite directly to the back of this piece of paper and just scribble on it. And if that's what you want to do, you can do that. There's a couple options here. You can use a graphite pencil, or you can use a graphite stick, which is definitely the fastest way to go. A graphite stick, such as this one, this is a 6B graphite stick. It will speed your process up. You'll be able to use it on its side and just quickly cover the back of this. You could use a pencil, like a 6B pencil, or you could even just try any pencil. It may work. A 6B pencil or a 6B graphite stick will give you the best results. But you can use even a regular pencil. And I'm going to show you that just in case that's all you have available and you want to try this. So if you have only just a regular drawing pencil, you can just grab your coloring page. And you could even, if you can kind of see through where the lettering or the image are, you can just scribble in that area. You can kind of lay this on its side and just, as far as you can, just fill in the whole page, or at least the areas where the image will be. So you don't have to go right to the edge of the paper, but you know, this is kind of, if you turn it around, you can see this is where the image is. So you could go over your whole paper with a regular pencil, and it will probably work fine, a regular HB pencil. However, I'm going to show you how to make graphite transfer paper that then you can turn around and use again and again and again on multiple projects. So let's get started. So to make our transfer paper, we're going to want some really thin, lightweight paper. This is onion skin paper, or here's some tracing paper. I'm not brand specific. You can find something cheap, maybe at the dollar store. You just want something that's fairly lightweight. And if the other thing you'll want to kind of make sure, this is just a small tip, it's helpful if it's the size of your coloring page. So like this one fits perfectly. This tracing paper here, though, is a little bit larger. So I would just go ahead and trim off the extras, and so that you have whatever you're using is going to be the same size as your coloring page. So the fastest way, as I mentioned, even though you can use any graphite drawing pencil, the fastest would be a graphite stick, because you can lay it on its side and just go to town and scribble the whole back of this. Now, if you don't have a stick, these are some of my art graphite pencils. And this is an HB, which is really like your normal pencil. Like most pencils are HB pencils. And then you'll notice these ones have numbers with them. There's a 2B, a 4B, and a 6B. Now these numbers, you can get them like, you can get more than the 2. You could get a 3B, a 5B. These are just some of the ones I tend to use. But the basic rule of graphite pencils when you're in the Bs, you can also get some on the other side of this range, is that the higher the number gets, the softer the lead will be, and the more, as you work with it like this, the more of it is going to just come off onto your paper. And it's going to result in a darker, richer value and tone. You're just going to get more graphite coming out. So if you have a range of B pencils at all, the higher the number, so as in 6B, the better. But if all you have is an HB, try it. It's just not going to be quite as dark and as rich in terms of how well this will work. And you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. But I'm going to use the graphite stick because it's the fastest way to do this. I'll just go ahead and speed this video up and I'll be right back. All right, we're coming to the end of this. I feel like I've got a pretty heavy layer on here. I'll just go over it on the side of here just really quick to make sure I've just got a nice coat that's pretty much everywhere. And we're gonna call this good. I assure you, this is not the cleanest project in the world. You will get graphite on you. A quick tip I'll jump in with as far as storing your transfer paper would be to fold it in quarters. So fold it in on itself, dirty side in, and then again, and you can store it in a small bag, and that way you'll eliminate how much of this graphite gets places you don't want it. And I'll also add that you can purchase graphite paper. You just have to be super careful that you don't mix it up with carbon paper, because the carbon paper will have a slight waxiness to it and it will be very dark. When you do your transfer, you will not be able to remove your lines afterwards. So just be really careful. Whatever you purchase is water soluble or it says graphite on it, and then test it first with something that doesn't matter so that you don't end up with something that can't be removed. Once we've made our transfer paper, we are going to start our tracing process. So we're going to lay our watercolor paper down first on the table. Then we're going to take our transfer paper that we've made and we're going to turn the dirty side downwards so that it's facing the watercolor paper. So just lay it down like that. Then you're going to go ahead and take your coloring page and lay it on top, and you want to kind of center everything more or less on your watercolor paper, just like that. And then you're going to grab some painter's tape. Now, the benefit of painter's tape is that it's not overly sticky, so you can easily peel it off afterwards. So I'm just going to hold this kind of steady and put a piece of tape in each corner. I have sometimes tried to just hold it steady while I trace, but if you jiggle it all or things have, end up getting moved accidentally, maybe you have to jump up or you get distracted by something that needs your attention, well, then you kind of have to start from the beginning. So I would just say, tape it down, better to be safe than sorry. Alrighty, so go ahead and grab ourselves a pencil now. I like to use a colored pencil for this step, just because then I can tell where I'm going. If I used a regular pencil, it would blend in with the coloring page. The coloring page that I printed here is the lightest gray. I really like working with the lighter gray, but I just figure it saves ink, and then if I'm going to color, then that's the best way to reduce the lines on your, reduce the look of the coloring book when you're doing a more realistic coloring project. But for painting, it doesn't matter as much. I just figure, hey, why not save the ink? So it doesn't really matter what color or which value you go with. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going all along the edges here, and I'm just tracing the outline of each of the petals. And then I'll just do a few small creases. So I'm not doing every single little detail or line here. I'm just gonna try and catch a few of the main ones, and we're gonna call that good. And then I'll move on to another petal. Just speed it up as I do all these outlines quickly here. Okay, so I've got the outlines. I'm just gonna throw a few details in here. Maybe here. Like I say, you don't want too many, just a few to kind of give you a little bit of a guideline as you're painting to know which direction you're gonna be creating some of these little creases and folds. So like I say, don't overdo here, just add a few. And I'm not gonna do any on the leaves. I think those are pretty self-explanatory. Oh, I missed the bottom of this one. Okay, I think that's good enough. As you can see, I didn't do them all. And the last step that we want to do, because we are not going to trace the scripture right now, we're going to work on that as our final step. I want to just give myself a little bit of guidance when I go to trace it again next time. So I'm going to grab myself a pencil. You don't want a colored pencil now, you just want a regular drawing pencil or just a basic pencil that's easy to erase. And you're just gonna make a little mark, and I'm actually drawing right on the watercolor paper now to show myself where my, the edge of my coloring page is, so that when I trace it again, which I'm gonna be doing again for this, I want this to kind of line up the same way as I have it right now. So by giving myself these little pencil marks right on my watercolor paper, I'm going to be able to put everything exactly the way I have it now, like the transfer paper and the coloring page. So then final step, we're going to go ahead and just lift this off and make sure we're happy with it. And to do that, I always like to just start with one corner. If you pull all the tape off at once and something didn't work, then it's really hard to get it on there again. It worked really well from what I can tell. So let's lift up this one. Be careful with the painter's tape here. At least this is going to be trimmable. It's tearing a little bit at the corner here. Just be careful. All right, so there you have it. That worked out really nicely. I'm really happy with how that traced. And I really don't even have to do much cleanup. Sometimes you'll find after you've done this that these are maybe too light, in which case if they're all too light, I would go ahead and maybe do another trace. What you can do, if this tracing paper doesn't have enough graphite on it, you could go ahead and just cover it with more graphite and do it again, and just line it up with the little marks that we've made for ourselves so the paper is in the same place. That's one reason actually it's a good idea to take a peek at it before you pull everything off. And even better, take a peek at it when you just start the tracing process. So if it's not working, you can stop tracing then, so I should mention that. But yeah, everything looks really good. I actually don't even have too many smudges. I have a small graphite smudge here, but sometimes when you lift this, you can be like, oh, I've got smudges everywhere. And that's where you're going to want a kneadable eraser, such as this one. It's a really soft, stretchy eraser that's very gentle on your watercolor paper. And you can just go in and kind of lift off any smudges. Or if this turned out too dark, which I'm really happy with how mine is, but you could go and lighten this off. And when I'm working on my own, I like it to be really light. However, I want the camera to be able to pick up everything, and so I'll probably leave it the way it is. But if you want it lighter, work lighter, because whatever you see right now, once the water hits it, it'll become permanent. So I'd say work as light as you can comfortably work, but I'm going to leave it that way. And if you need to darken it, you can just darken it, like darken these lines with a pencil, just gently and lightly, or if you need to lighten them with the kneaded eraser. Otherwise, I think we are ready to go ahead and paint. So thank you so much for joining me as we discussed our materials and made some preparations for our upcoming watercolor project. I am looking forward to doing it with you guys so soon, and I'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye.